No, we fully embrace the supernatural side of Scripture, because without it, then we can't believe in the proclamation and the power of the preaching of the gospel. I think you had a couple other examples of this.
Well, let me comment on one thing that you said there, which is that it isn't myth. So this is something that I like to challenge people with, because I think we're begging the question when we say it isn't myth. And when we say that, we have in our mind, what we're doing is we're translating myth into a definition. And the question is, what is myth? And I think most of us hear that word, and so we think legend, fable, fairy tale, fiction, you name it. But the underlying similarity in all those words in our mind is that it's fake. It's not real. And what I want to challenge people with is that myth, there's nothing implicit in the word myth that demands that it's not real or historical. It's simply my simple definition for a myth is that it's an origin story. It may be a fable. It may not be a fable. It may be fiction. It may not be fiction. But it's an origin story. And so, this kind of gets back a little bit to last week talking about Zeus, because we hear Zeus, we hear myth, we hear fake, we hear not real. And so in our minds, Zeus can't be real. But what we talked about last week is that Zeus is real. He actually is Satan. Satan's a real entity. And so we have to comport our idea of what a myth is. And my understanding is that it's kind of just the supernatural realm retold, repurposed for the idea of telling us what the origin of a culture or civilization happens to be. In this case, the myth would be talking about something very central to our faith, which is the death of Jesus. And it's not a myth that it's fake, but it's a myth in that it's fantastical. It's an arch story. It's like the great story of the ages, told in a story format, but it's completely historical and took place in front of eyewitnesses and is real at the same time that it's also working on that deeper level of what a myth does to us as humans, because we're like drawn. We're either drawn to myth or we're repulsed by it. And I think most people are repulsed by it because they just think it's fake. And what I'm trying to suggest is that it's not necessarily fake. And of course, the Bible, and this is another thing that comes from Lewis, is that he called the Bible the true myth, putting together two words that usually in our mind can't possibly go together, because he was trying to help us reevaluate and understand that the Bible is telling you a fantastical story that's actually true.
No, that's really helpful. I think that's really good, because it is hard. I love what you're providing here, Doug, is because there are parts of our Bibles that are fantastical. Just like, wow, and there are parts of it we can embrace. Like, for whatever reason, we're okay with Moses dividing the waters and millions of people walk across dry ground. Like, there's certain parts of our Bible that we're okay with, but then there are other parts of it that was like, yeah, that wouldn't happen. That's not real. And the pushback on that is why are we saying that? Why are we doing that? And then the result is, what are we missing? One of the things that has really challenged me in the last few years is that when God says the gospel is the power of God, well, then you have to ask yourself, first of all, what is God's power? Secondly, what is the gospel? There is a lot of evidence and there's a lot of metaphysical science that's wrapped up in the gospel, but it's a very small portion of it, because a lot of what is there is beyond our comprehension as for the proof of science. And then what you're saying is, this is the part that people struggle with. The gospel, technically for us today, is a compilation of words. Is that fair? It's a compilation of words. You put certain words together, and God says that houses these words, because they are reflecting something that happened. So they're describing history. And when these words are compilated together, and they're compilated together appropriately, God's power rests within them. Well, that sounds like incantations, right? That sounds like you're reading potions and you're reading some kind of curse upon people. And this is how the Bible functions, is that when believers proclaim a compilation of words upon an unbeliever's ears, it goes in and it pierces their soul and brings them to life. Well, if you remove, as you said, the myth, or you remove the mystical side of the Bible, then you have to then approach it from a metaphysical side. You have to approach it from a scientific side, where I've got to have enough evidence and enough proof and basically enough logic to bring someone into the kingdom. And we as Reformed would say, no, we fully embrace the supernatural side of Scripture, because without it, then we can't believe in the proclamation and the power of the preaching of the gospel.
Yeah, the gospel is no longer powerful.